I've climbed the mountains in Montana, danced in the lights of New Orleans. Portland ran away with me, and San Francisco stayed with me. Nashville made its way in between. Fell in love in Minnesota, fell apart south of Salt Lake. Colorado calls to me, and Washington will always be begging for a piece of me to stay. Maybe some things never change, but I wanna know how it feels to hang pictures on a wall, sleep in the same bed at night. I want reasons to stay, I want someone to take up my time and miss me when I go. I've swam the beaches on the west coast, climbed the trees of Caroline. I felt the city streets of Boston underneath my feet, heard the sound of subways down the line, walked the lakesides of Wisconsin, and bathed in springs of Idaho.
Hi, and welcome back to Purple Color Life. Almost 1 year ago, we were here with the fifth wheel and the F350, and we had a transmission failure. And a lot of you have asked for a transmission update. Today's video is the update on the transmission in our F350 Super Duty truck. And I think it might surprise you. It's hard to believe that it has been 1 year since we were here with the truck and we had our transmission failure after towing our fifth wheel camper. Now, I've done a couple videos in the past about towing with the F350 with the 7.3 Godzilla and this 10-speed transmission. Our truck is a 2020 F350 Super Duty with the 7.3 Godzilla V8 gas engine and the 10-speed transmission. They call this the Torque Shift 10-speed. This transmission is the 10R140 transmission. And this is the transmission that GM and Ford worked together on in order to come up with a 10-speed transmission that would work well in heavy-duty Super Duty trucks with either the diesel or the big Godzilla gas engine. So in a couple years of ownership of this truck, I'm going to talk to you about the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to this 10-speed transmission. Like I said, 1 year ago we had that transmission failure after towing this camper. It's about 12,500 pounds, this fifth wheel trailer, and we're right now in the middle of summer, which means we're doing a lot of camping, a lot of boating, and the truck's putting a lot of miles on, mostly towing. So to come to camp this week, which is over an hour away from our house, we've towed the fifth wheel, we've towed the pontoon boat, we've towed the Nautique, the Sport Nautique ski boat, and we've towed the jet ski. So that's a lot of back and forth trips. We've had a lot of recent experience towing with the F350. And like I said, 1 year after our transmission failure. Now, I did a video about a year ago talking about the fuel mileage I get in this F350. It's a 1-ton pickup truck, and if I drive this on my daily drive to work, which is about 165 miles round trip, I did an experiment using the Eco Drive mode to see what my mileage would be, and I was pretty impressed. A truck this size with a gas engine got pretty decent mileage, and I'll put a link to that up above. Now, I don't use this as my daily driver every single day, but once in a while I drive it to my commute to work just to make sure I get enough runtime on the truck, get some miles on the truck that aren't towing. Because 90% of the time when I'm using this truck, it's because I'm towing something. So when it comes to the good of the 10-speed transmission, the mileage is pretty good, so I'd give that a good column. The feel is pretty good. When you're not towing something and you're on the interstate, this is a wonderful truck to drive. It can accelerate quickly, it maintains speed easily, you don't feel those shifts going up through the range when you're on the on-ramp, accelerating on the interstate at 70 miles an hour. It's a really good feel, and I'd say that's the best this transmission feels, is when you're not towing anything on the interstate, regular speeds. It's a nice feeling transmission. Unfortunately, like I said, most of the time when I'm using this truck, I'm towing, and when I'm towing, it's an okay feeling transmission. The 10-speed towing 12,500 pounds does pretty good, especially on interstate travel. It does a good job shifting between gears. If you're coming downhill, it shifts down nicely. Sometimes it revs a little high when you shift down, but it's doing its part to help you slow down the truck and the trailer. It's actually been a full week since I shot the video about the transmission, and I've since that time towed the camper home, towed the boat home, towed the jet ski home, and I wanted to give this little snippet here in the middle of the video as an update. So having done all those three things in a row, all that towing with the Ford, with the 10-speed transmission and the 7.3 Godzilla, I wanted to say that the performance is impressive with this truck, with that engine and that transmission at speeds on the interstate or even on rural roads at 45, 55 miles an hour. I have no complaints about the transmission. Even the mileage is pretty good with this big of a truck towing a heavy trailer. So I just wanted to add this little clip in here and say that compared to our previous truck that we had for 17 years, the 6.0 PowerStroke diesel and the 5-speed transmission, this combination of the Godzilla gas engine and the 10-speed transmission is just as good or better when it comes to interstate towing and rural roads towing or just driving. It's only that slow speed stuff that it suffers. So if I were giving the truck a grade on highway travel, not towing anything, I'd give it an A. If I'm giving it a grade as far as the transmission on highway travel towing something, I'd give it a B. It's pretty good. But when it comes to slow speed towing, so we're in a campground, and when you're going 5, 10, 8, 15 miles an hour, that is when the bad of this transmission really comes out. Whether you're towing or not towing, it doesn't seem to matter. The problem is it can't pick a gear. It'll start out in first, sometimes it'll shift to second, sometimes it'll shift to third, but either way, a lot of times it's very jerky movement. I actually had this transmission just the other day shift directly from first to fourth, and it had that like ramp up like you were letting a clutch out too quickly and revving the gears. It really jerked us forward. So that's where this transmission has problems, and I think that's where our problem last year came from. You know, you're coming into the campground, you're going about 10 miles an hour, maybe 8 miles an hour. You have to slow down for speed bumps. You probably slow down to just about nothing when you're towing a camper like this. And then you accelerate for a short distance, maybe going again 8, 10 miles an hour, stop at a stop sign. Accelerate from 0, slow down for a speed bump, stop at a stop sign. You know, there's all that stop and go, all between 0 and about 10 to 12 miles an hour. And that's where this transmission really struggles. Can't pick a gear. When it does pick a gear, it picks wrong. And at first I thought, well, the transmission's just learning my driving style. I thought it would kind of correct over time, but that's not the case. It seems to always have an issue, and it can't decide what gear to stay in. But despite that, we haven't had to have any work done to it. We had that issue last summer. It kind of self-corrected. It allowed it to, once we shut the truck off, let it reset a little bit and then restart. The transmission then allowed us to use reverse again so that we could back up to the camper, hook up and go home. Ever since then, we haven't had that transmission failure where we couldn't get into reverse, but we have had lots of times in slow speed driving where it's got the jerkiness and the inability to pick a gear. Those situations have continued for the last year. We haven't had any transmission work done. We talked to the dealership. They said just keep driving it. If it fails again, bring it back to us. It hasn't had that failure, but I know a lot of people probably would not put up with the constant jerkiness at slow speeds. And I think that's why a lot of people are taking their trucks in and having the transmission worked on or replaced. I know of one guy in our YouTube group who's had his transmission replaced 3 times and eventually traded the truck in on another brand. We're not to that point yet. There's a lot of things we really like about this truck. I made a video last year about the 10 things we had to have, or the 10 things we were looking for in a new truck. I'll put a link to that up above. So there are a lot of things about this truck we really like, but the transmission is not one of them. It's getting us from A to B, and it does fine towing at interstate speeds. It does fine driving at interstate speeds. Even normal rural driving does okay, but the slow speeds of a campground are where it is failing. So those of you who have asked for a transmission update, there's your update. We've discovered that there is the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to this 10-speed transmission. The problem is the slow speed of a campground or a rough road. That's where the transmission really struggles. Like I said, it hasn't let us down as far as leaving us stranded so far, so that's good news. There's your update, transmission update on our 2020 Ford F350 with a 7.3 Godzilla engine. Mostly used for towing the fifth wheel, the pontoon boat, the ski boat, and the jet ski. Thanks for watching. If you've had experiences with this 10-speed transmission, make sure you leave comments down below. A lot of the viewers watch and read down through all the comments, so that'll be helpful to them. Also, if you're not already subscribed to Purple Collar Life, we make a lot of videos about rural living. Here we're camping, but we do a lot of log splitter, tractor, homeowner work here in Northwest Pennsylvania. Thanks for watching. Hopefully we see you again the next time.